I had to call CPS on my own daughter after her boyfriend knocked up my grandbaby. I have a daughter named Kelly. She has 3 daughters. Megan is 15, Sue is 14, and Joan is 10. She also has an 18-year-old son that I adopted. They live in an apartment that I own and rent to her. I had told her it was only for a year until she got back on her feet. She's been there since 2019. Well, my daughter is a bad mother in my opinion. For example, one time she asked if her daughter Sue was at my house. She wasn't, and I found out she had run off and been gone for 9 days. Every time my grandkids come to my house, they always make comments about how it's so cool that we eat at the table and have 3 meals a day, or how we have hot water for more than 5 minutes. How water and food shouldn't be luxuries to these kids. If I ask them anything, they always look at their mom for an answer. I stopped by the apartment for a surprise visit, and it was bad. The walls were broken, and insulation was coming out. There was a mirror smashed, and it reeked of alcohol and dog urine. Megan was there trying to clean everything. She said she didn't know where her mom was, that she left 2 days ago and hadn't returned her calls. Megan had been working since she was 13 for a family friend. She told us about how her mom takes every paycheck for bills, and is also trying to get a boyfriend from another country into the US legally. This was a few months ago, but now the boyfriend tried moving into the apartment. I told my daughter to either get her own place or leave him, because I was not about to have him around when she stole thousands from her daughter just for him. Well, she had him living there in secret. My last straw was 2 weeks ago. Megan ended up in the hospital with a broken ankle and a concussion. She had fallen down the stairs, and her mom didn't let me in the room. After a while, a doctor said my granddaughter nearly suffered a miscarriage. She had been pregnant for around 2 months. Her mom was shocked, and she went ballistic. My husband had to drag her out. I tried to ask Megan who the dad was, since she had previously mentioned there were a few boys at school who liked her. She stayed quiet and didn't say anything. She begged us not to report this, since years ago she was in foster care and knows how it can be. She doesn't want her sister to go through it. I confronted Kelly, and she just called Megan a loose girl who should have used a rubber if she was going to be doing these things. I asked her if she'd be willing to let me keep the girls for a few months, and she refused. When I called her to reconsider, I told her she has 1 week to hand over her children, or I'll kick her out and tell CPS how she lets her daughters live so badly, not to mention other things. My mother now got involved, saying I'm in the right. However, a few cousins say I'm out of line and shouldn't give Kelly an ultimatum. It's been a week. The kids still aren't here. Now I'm preparing to do this, but I'll give it a few hours. Would I be the jerk if I called CPS? I'm not sure if you're a jerk for calling CPS, but you're definitely the jerk for other reasons. If the walls are torn apart and there's no hot water, that comes down to having a bad landlord. Who's the landlord again? Let me just check my notes here. Oh, right. It's you. How is it possible they've lived in your place for 3 years and you just now got around to stopping by? It sounds like this original poster isn't involved in these kids' lives at all, but now she wants to swoop in and play the hero. This is especially shocking if one of the kids has already been in foster care before. That tells you these people need to be checked on. I'll note that the commenters were really quick to assume the mother's boyfriend pushed Megan down the stairs for carrying his baby. I don't have much to say about that, because I'm only about 10% certain this story is real. I wouldn't even be that sure if I hadn't lived in the world before and met people as naive as this OP. But they're out there. So, sure, go ahead and call CPS. They'll wonder as much as I do why Kelly's landlord wasn't keeping the hot water on. This OP might get the kids taken away, but I doubt she'll get custody herself, which is probably for the best, since she's the kind of person who can't make radically life-altering decisions without involving Reddit. My sister thinks dogs matter more than children. Also, my husband just exploded. I have 4 kids aged from 11 months to 10 years old. I love them all more than anything, but I'll be the first to admit that our house is constant chaos and can get very exhausting. My sister is child-free, but she loves my kids and was happy to watch the older 2 or 3 sometimes to help me keep my sanity. This has been extremely helpful, and I tell her all the time how grateful we are for her help. The thing is that the kids used to go over to her house, but right now they can't because my sister is fostering an elderly Chihuahua. My sister claims she couldn't have them over for the time being because they would stress out the dog. Her dog was extremely frail and timid, so I think this was a fair assessment. This was the 4th dog she has fostered, all of which couldn't be around my kids. The most recent dog took 8 months to find a home for, but most of her other dogs took even longer. When she told me she found an adopter, I knew I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. I even joked about how glad I was that she could babysit again. My sister proceeded to tell me that there was a second dog that desperately needed a new foster, so she planned to take in that one as soon as her current dog was gone. So she couldn't do any more babysitting than she already is. Sometimes she comes over to my house in the morning to help out, but I need more. I could literally feel my stress levels spike. I haven't ever done this before, but I opened up to her about how much I've been struggling since she got the dog. I told her how little sleep I get each night, how my husband hasn't been helping as much as he should, and some other deeply personal issues that I've been struggling with. Then I asked her point blank not to get another dog. She comforted me, but ultimately didn't agree on anything and said she needed some time to think. I know I'm asking a lot of her, since rescuing dogs is her passion, and that is why I feel so guilty. But I don't have anyone else to help me. I can't afford a babysitter long term, and my friends all have their own kids to look after. Above all, my kids will always come before a dog, and that's the reason I was willing to request it. I've told a few different people about the situation and have gotten a wide range of heavily biased opinions. Am I being an unreasonable jerk? I would never demand her to do this if she didn't want to, but is it really so wrong to just be honest about my situation and earnestly ask? The comments were pretty harsh on this one. You can probably imagine why, but it might be best to let OP's updates do the talking. Update 1. I am not some careless mother who just keeps popping out children that I can't take care of. My husband is not a deadbeat dad. After our youngest was born, he got severe depression. He isn't out having fun while I'm working 24/7. He is miserable. I went to my sister instead of him for help because I don't want to lose him. Update 2. So 2 days after posting, I asked my husband for a divorce. He was very upset, but said he saw it coming. After we divorced, he wasn't well enough to watch our kids on his own, so I received full custody. My sister did decide to foster the dog because it would have been put down otherwise, and my ex-husband needed a companion, so he actually ended up adopting that Chihuahua later. He was really improving for a bit, but then he got into a plane crash and passed away. My sister actually found my post because it was on a TikTok makeup video. She asked why I would ever post on a dumb fake drama site. I actually did take everyone's good advice to heart though, so I had to disagree with her. I'm just moving on day by day now. I've used some community resources to help with my kids. I still ask my sister for help sometimes though. I think things will improve despite the tragedy. Well, if OP wasn't the jerk before, she's definitely the jerk now. After all that talk about needing her sister's help, there were community resources available all along. Some people in the comments were pretty offended at the idea of anyone asking a child-free person for help with a kid. This seems slightly unreasonable, depending on the situation. Asking someone for a little help now and then isn't forcing them to restructure their lifestyle. But OP was asking for a ton of help when it was available elsewhere. That's a bit much. What really makes OP a jerk, however, is that she doesn't think Redditors are smart enough to figure out that plane crashes are documented, and the timeline of her post doesn't match up. If any of this story is true at all, the bit about the plane crash is definitely just a play for sympathy. That sort of manipulation is exactly what tosses my sympathy out the window. I'm also highly skeptical that your sister found this post through a makeup tutorial, of all things. You're a jerk, OP. You're a jerk to dogs, kids, sisters, and Redditors. You're a jerk to plane crashes that actually happened, and the people dealing with real loss. The only help you need from anyone is therapy. My villainous boyfriend forced me to eat plain noodles and laughed about it. I've always been a picky eater, especially when it comes to tomatoes. Ever since I was a kid, my dad would make my spaghetti differently from the rest of the house. I like having an essence of the sauce flavor on the noodles, but not the overpowering flavor that having noodles bathed in sauce creates. So here's where it gets a bit odd. My dad would separate my spaghetti from the family's after putting the sauce on. Then he would rinse the sauce off with a sink and strainer. I love noodles like this, as it gives the mild spaghetti a nice, subtle tomato vibe. My boyfriend has known about this since we first started dating. He always told me that my food habits were cute. We've been dating for almost 3 years now and moved in together at the beginning of the pandemic so we could be in lockdown together. Ever since we moved in together, he insisted on taking charge of the cooking and all cooking-related tasks. Things like dishes, grocery shopping, and so on. He assigned me the role of cleaning the bulk of the apartment. We split other tasks pretty much 50-50. Everything was perfect, and he always seemed to be making noodles the way I liked them whenever we had them. This was until last week, when we last had spaghetti. We ate, and everything was good, but afterward he started teasing me. He kept saying things like, "You really like your pasta with an essence of tomato," and "How was your tomato essence, babe?" He kept using finger quotes around the word essence. After a few comments, I felt something was off, and asked him if he had done anything differently with tonight's noodles than he usually does. He started laughing. When he finally stopped laughing, he told me the whole truth while smirking. He said, "I didn't do anything different than I usually do. I've never been making it the way you've requested." Apparently, the entire time we've been living together, he's just been skipping the pasta sauce on my noodles entirely. He claimed that if I didn't notice for this long, then it shouldn't matter that he's making dinner in a way that's easier for him. I disagree entirely. I think the lying was a huge breach of trust, and so was the refusal to make dinner how I wanted. I have admittedly been acting passive-aggressively to him since, but he thinks he did nothing wrong. He thinks I'm overreacting and that I need to let it go. Am I the jerk? Update 1. My boyfriend found this post and is not happy. I'm debating pouring the sauce directly down the drain just to spite him. Update 2. So a lot has happened since this morning. Y'all may be happy to hear we broke up. We had a huge blow-up fight since he found the post, which led to me breaking up with him. He did not like being called a predator by the comments, and I started to think y'all had a point about that. So I ended up breaking up with him. He attempted to plead with me a bit. My parents pay our rent, so he can't afford the place without me, but I wouldn't budge. Now, some things I found out in the argument. First, he is not a pharmacist like he always told me. He just works at CVS. Second, he has actually cheated on me multiple times with other girls that go to my college. And lastly, worst of all, he has never actually been allergic to dogs, but just doesn't like them. You're the jerk, OP. Mostly for destroying my brain cells with your nonsense. You're thinking of pouring the sauce down the drain? You mean like you've been doing your entire life? That bit about the subtle tomato vibe made me think OP had a super refined palate. And now I know she can't tell the difference between tomato sauce and boiled water. For anyone confused about why she's calling her boyfriend a predator, that's a reference to something that came up in the comments. This OP is currently 20 and her boyfriend is 26. But she says they got together 3 years ago. That means a 23-year-old man was going out with a 17-year-old girl. Naturally, Reddit was quick to accuse him of grooming. It's actually hard to say. The usual test is to divide your age in half, then add 7 years. That only puts OP a couple of years behind her boyfriend's lowest acceptable age limit. Of course, age gaps seem a lot larger when one person is a teenager. But honestly, it doesn't matter. She's throwing a fit about eating plain noodles when she basically asked for plain noodles. Let's just assume anyone who gets with OP at any age is going to be dating a child. I chopped down my neighbor's tree without permission, and I don't feel bad about it. My grandpa is in his late 80s, and for almost 50 years, his yard was his absolute pride and joy. My grandma passed away shortly after giving birth to my mom, and my grandpa maintained the yard as a tribute to her. He can't do it anymore, so we help out where we can. His original neighbor had a willow tree that they trimmed in such a way that the seed pods and leaves would not fall on my grandpa's property. A younger couple bought the house a few years ago to turn it into an Airbnb, and they let the tree just grow. The leaves and seed pods then blew into my grandpa's yard, creating a huge mess. This led to my grandpa getting into these huge fits because he couldn't go out and clean it up. I tried to have a conversation with the owners about hiring a landscaper. They would know what to do, as my grandpa and his previous neighbor had a system that worked for 20 years. Not sure how to put this, but the neighbors are very uppity people who don't give a crap about the character of the neighborhood. They said the tree photographs well for their Airbnb ads the way it is. I emailed them, as well as Airbnb, to see if we could come up with a solution. They refused and told me to stop bothering them. I decided to take it into my own hands. I went and cut down the tree. I waited for a time when I was able to talk to someone doing the bathroom remodels, who said he would be there for 7 days, meaning no Airbnb guests. I basically blended in with the other workers and brought that piece of crap down. The stump is a total hack job and looks bad, but I did remove all the wood. We'll use it for campfires this year at mountain bike races. My sister and cousins think I opened up a huge can of worms that we all will have to deal with. And they have called me a jerk, among other things. But so far, there's been no fallout. Am I the jerk? Wait, so you not only illegally chopped down the tree, but then you stole the timber? You are so very much the jerk. You put actual effort into being the jerk. Although I'm a little confused as to how you chopped down this tree while the workers were there. You say you blended in with the workers doing the bathroom remodels. Did these bathroom renovations involve a lot of workers chopping down trees? Because it seems like you would have stuck out like a sore thumb. What makes this so extra is that OP says the tree was previously trimmed in a way that worked just fine. So OP didn't have to chop it down at all. Trimming it would have worked fine. There's been no fallout because the owners haven't been there. But remember that they liked the tree for what it added to their photographs, and if they're doing renovations, they're probably going to be taking new photos, so that fallout is definitely coming. Granted, that means even trimming the tree would have been risky. No pun intended, I'm a little stumped on how OP should have handled this. Do you have any ideas? Leave us a comment below letting us know how you might have dealt with this. Click on one of the videos you see on the screen now, or a Karen will sue you.